A few weeks ago I had to do the front brakes on the Odyssey because they were due for, the rotors were due for their warranty replacement. Now the rear brakes are due, so we're going to do those as well. I'm only going to show the one side because the other side obviously is identical. So let's get started. Just like the front, the Odyssey is known for warping the rear brakes as well. So I've got the e-brake turned off, so I can take it and spin it around, and I can kind of feel resistance right there. And it's dragging on the pads, and then there's a section where you don't even hear it touching the pads. And then it begins dragging the pads yet again. If I had a dial indicator, I could hook it up somewhere rigid, like right here, and then there would be a little arm with a dial indicator sitting out. And I guarantee I would see that this surface here is not true or flat, that surface is almost wavy. And the high spot will be right through here where it's grabbing. It's still high. And then the low spot, deflecting that way, would be right through there. But I don't need a dial indicator to tell that. I can just tell that it's grabbing on the rotors and releasing. I'm turning it there and you don't even hear it. So the first bolts I need to get off are these right here that hold the caliper halves. These are a 12mm bolt. Yours may be different if the caliper's been changed. The caliper just wiggles off. And you can see the piston is starting to corrode, and that'll happen. I'm just going to take the caliper and some little hooks to hold it off to the side. And then the caliper bracket is a 17mm bolt, and I'm just going to hold the ratcheting wrench like this and tap with my hammer to break it free. And there's a caliper bracket. These are the caliper bolts. Obviously these pads are not terribly worn. They could go for a little while longer, but with that warped rotor, I might as well change them all out, get new rotors under warranty for free, and I'll go ahead and get new pads. All right, in order to get the rotors off, you have two options. You could use an impact driver. What it has is this little piece right here, which is just a 3/8 to a hex bit holder, large bit holder. What you do is you take a hammer on this, and as you hammer it, it rotates. Unfortunately, I've had this for about 20 years, and this one's fallen apart. The other option is an impact itself. And that screw is rounded out. Wonderful. So in order to get this screw out the rest of the way, I'm just going to go ahead and round it out more. Switching to both directions. Got a couple different options to try to get this out. You can take a chisel. Kind of cut a little groove in it. I already tried it up here, it didn't move. We're gonna try it again down here. Cut a little groove in it, and then you saw I was coming straight on at it. Now I'm gonna come at about a 45 and try and turn it. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. Doesn't appear to be my lucky day. Next thing we're gonna do is take a drill and drill a hole down the center. This is a number 30 bit, an 1/8 inch. Believe it or not, with the drill, you want to take and use a little bit of lubricant. This is some stuff I have left over from when I was in aviation, but you can just use any kind of lubricant. In order to get straight on the drill bit, what you want to do, some drills actually come with a level now. What you want to do is kind of look down at this angle and make sure it's perpendicular to the surface here. And then you can look down at this angle as well and make sure it's perpendicular as well. Next thing we're going to do is use what's called a easy out. We're going to take the easy out, put it right there. Hammer it in a little. This seats the teeth in the easy out. And now, that is the extracted screw. One thing I forgot to mention, in order to keep the rotor from spinning, I went ahead and set the emergency brake. The emergency brake has pads that are similar to like a brake drum or shoes, and they're on the inside of here, and that's holding it from rotating. That kept this from moving around on me while I was trying to break that free. So I'm gonna go unset the emergency brake, and then we'll take this off. So before I got this rotor off this side, I went ahead and did the other side so that I could still use the emergency brake. If you take this rotor off now, before you do the other side, and then you try to use the emergency brake to stop this, you're going to have some problems. You could actually blow the seals out of the emergency brake. Don't do that. Just make sure you take the other side off and get it to this point as well. So to get this rotor off, I'm just going to tap it. Real hard. A little bit. Now let's work free on the HUD. Tap that. We may end up having to adjust the emergency brake back. I got the other side off without having to. Oftentimes what it gets hung up on is there's a little ridge right here. You can barely feel it. There's a little ridge and it'll catch the end of these shoes in the drum. You may have been wondering what these pieces were that fell. Yes, these are shims. Whoops. They go on this side. They go against this here, so that when you put this on, it shims it to the proper span. So those are important to leave back on there. The bolt's going to come through and thread into the caliper bracket. The other thing you want to do before you take this rotor to the parts store is remove this little dust cap. You're not going to get a new dust cap with the new rotor. So in order to get that dust cap out, I'm just going to take a flat blade and just be careful with it and just push it through the hole. And there's my little dust cap. This dust cap, when we go to put the rotors back on, is going to stay off because it's going to allow us to adjust the emergency brake. So before we take these pads back to the store to get our credit back, we got to get the pads out, and sometimes they want the brackets too. So we're going to do that. By the way, this is an old box that I had for brakes. I kind of hang on to one just to make it easier to transport these because they're very dusty and dirty, and I don't want this stuff all over my car. So you just use a flat blade to pry these off. I think I've shown that in other videos if you watch them. And that caliper is stripped. Caliper bracket, rather. Pads just come right out. As well. Got everything boxed up, ready to go to the parts store. What I did want to check was these boots. You want to make sure these aren't cracked. Inspect them for any kind of cracks or splits or dry rotting. I replaced these the last time. They're still very squishy. They're not dry rotted. I don't see any cracks. Take a look at the other side. You could just opt to go ahead and replace these. They're only a few dollars, but it's entirely your call. All right, I have a box of goodies. Pads to keep the box, brackets, and 2 new rotors. All right, gotta love the supply chain. I went ahead and ordered some of these screws last night on Amazon. I'll put the part number in the description. Like I said, a lot of people are gonna leave these screws for the rotor bolts out. I like to put them back in. I don't know why. So to get these easy outs off, just put the vice grips on the screw, and you gotta get the vice grips nice and tight. Just like that. And just to note, these easy outs, I've got a bunch of them down here, and they do wear out. You get this one's starting to round off really bad, but they're Snap-on or Matco. I've got a couple different brands because we did multiple different tool trucks that came into the shop when I was in a shop, and I would always just swap them out. So now you can, if you don't have a tool truck or work from home on this kind of stuff, you can call up Snap-on and give them the part number and let them know that you bought it from them, and if you did, they'll be able to look it up, and they'll go ahead and send you a new one out for free. So, all right, let's strip these down and take them over to the parts washer. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the pins out. I'm going to keep these separated by the right-hand side of the vehicle and the left-hand side of the vehicle. So to get these pins out, you're just going to want to kind of squeeze the rubber and then slide the pin out. One of these pins is going to have a little rubber piece inside of here, and I will show you again. I think I showed you that on the last video on the front where that goes. In fact, the back doesn't have it, so fantastic. All right, I guess I'm just thinking of the front. So then to get these out, you just kind of squeeze it and pull it out. You can see my grease is kind of discolored. I want to go ahead and get all that grease out of there. Don't take these over to the parts washer. We're going to clean these with brake cleaner or isopropyl alcohol. I guess I should have grabbed some more brake cleaner when I was at the parts store. Darn no luck. All right. These will swell if you take them over to the parts washer, and you'll never get them back in. At least if you're using mineral spirits. So let's go over to the parts washer. I'm going to strip this other one down, and then we'll head over there. All right, we're over at the parts washer, and I use mineral spirits in mine. The gloves, you want to make sure you have some gloves that actually are compatible with the chemical you're working with. If your gloves swell up, if I just use regular throwaway gloves, they'll swell up and eventually open up. When they swell up, you know for a fact, and I just so you know, I take one of these little hooks and then I hang it on a little, you can hang it on a nail on the wall or whatever, but that keeps them dry in between uses. But if your gloves swell up, what's happening is the chemical or the solvent is attacking the glove, and it will start to permeate through, and it's actually getting on your skin. Mineral spirits is a nasty chemical, and you really don't want it on your skin. So just be aware of that. Any of these kinds of chemicals, they can get into your bloodstream, and then they're in your bloodstream for life. So don't, take your health like that seriously. Alright, so take the pins out. I'm just going to clean them one at a time. And if you didn't have a parts washer, you could do this with just brake parts cleaner really easily. Another thing that these parts washers have is these little fastener buckets that you can just take your fasteners and dunk them, pull them back out. This parts washer did come with a fixed hose that I've taken off. I kind of would like to put it back on at some point, somewhere. I've got to kind of continue modifying it. But I ended up running a exterior oil filter to it to filter the fluid, so that's why it doesn't have the piece coming off the top here. This one's a Harbor Freight model. Alright, then I'm going to take a wire brush and just wire brush where the brackets go. And just rinse that off. I like to keep a little artisan brush in here for stuff like this. Get down inside of there real well and loosen it all up. Just hit it with that, rinse it all out. Alright, and then I'm just going to give this whole thing a little dunk for a little while. And come back to it in a little bit. Get the other one prepped while I do that. You want to try and get all the old grease out as much as you can anyway. Preferably all. See, my fluid's pretty dirty. I need to change the filter for this. If you run this stuff through a fuel filter, it actually gets it almost completely clear. You have to take a couple fuel filters. I've used this fluid for a lot of different things. I rebuilt the motor on my S10. This fluid's seen its fair share of jobs, of brake jobs and other things as well, so it's pretty filthy. The thing I like about mineral spirits as opposed to some of the other chemicals will actually strip the powder coat in this tank. I've had this tank for 15 years or so and only used mineral spirits, and it's still in pretty good shape. You know, there's scratches in the paint, but that stuff will actually strip the paint completely. Alright, that's done. Now we can just pull this basket up. And pull these out. Give them a quick rinse. Then you want to shut your parts washer off. Put your gloves and hang them up. And then grab another set of gloves or just some paper towels. I'm just going to take the parts, just kind of dab them off with some paper towel. I'm going to wipe off my gloves first, is what I did. That's why the rag's a little wet. Mineral spirits is a very low evaporation rate. So you want to try and get any excess off of this stuff. Dump your parts out, things like that. This stuff really won't evaporate on you. I don't even remember the last time I filled this thing. It really doesn't evaporate anything off. If it does, it's very, very little. Really, you lose fluid from doing stuff and then having to wipe it off of the parts. Or if these were full and then I took it and dumped it overboard, you know, you're going to lose the fluid then. But now you can look down inside of these. They're super clean. We can get some fresh grease in them. First, we're going to continue cleaning them though. We've got to clean them off with some alcohol. So we got both of them cleaned up a little bit here. I'm going to go ahead and clean this next. Inside of these. Probably should have just grabbed new ones so I didn't have to clean them. Brake cleaner is almost empty. I'm just going to take a little, this is isopropyl alcohol. Give them a final rinse. That might be perfect. Alright, now I'll do the other set. Before we go greasing and reinstalling everything, I'm just going to take a blowgun and blow inside of these and get these cleared completely. I'm going to do that off camera because I'm just going to blast that stuff into my lens. We can go ahead and begin reassembling our calipers. So we're just going to take our pins, lightly grease them up. Put a little grease down in the hole. Caliper pin should slide pretty easily inside, in and out of there. It's going to wipe most of the grease off, so you just have to keep kind of applying it, packing it in. And you don't want to go too much. Alright, then we're going to come back, take a little bit of grease and put it inside of our boot. And then one at a time, we'll take our pin back out. stand it up so it doesn't get dirty. All right, and then you're going to take this side and you're just going to kind of push it down in the hole, and you kind of have to just let it pop in. It really isn't all that difficult. Then you'll take this side and shove that in, and then you can wipe up any of the excess, and you want to kind of press it down. If the boots inflate tons, then you want to get a little bit of that grease out. Then it's got too much grease at that point. Doesn't look like it's got too much grease. So, and now I'm just going to wipe up the excess, because all it's going to do is attract dust and dirt. Take this one out, put a little grease in it. Take it, and all I'm doing is just taking my thumb and pushing it in. If they're not going in, it's probably because you got something on them and the boot is swollen, the rubber's swollen. A chemical that you shouldn't have put on it to clean it. And you'll probably have to replace it. Because if that rubber swells up, man, I've fought them before. It's not fun. That one's done. Now this one's got a little too much grease. See how it's just kind of retracting on its own? Just kind of work it out. I can kind of pinch the boot and bleed excess air. Next, you're going to grab your brake hardware kit that came with your brake pads. Toss a little bag to the side. These pads also had squealers that we'll have to attach to the pads. So these, you got these little tabs right here. They got to go on either side of these. Just line them up just like that. Push them on. Looks like this is a different design. It doesn't have little tabs on the ends. These did. Alright, time to load up the pads. But first, we've got to attach squealers. So usually your squealers are going to go on the inside, the inboard side, so where you wouldn't see them. So this is going to go, this is sitting how it's going to sit on the driver's side, or excuse me, on the passenger side. This is how it's going to sit on the driver's side when it's on the car. So the wheel is going to be rotating this way. So ideally, these tabs will go where it first contacts the brake. So it would be on this side. The rotor is going to be turning this way, right? So we're going to take our pad, and we've got these little spots right here that are cleared out for these. Now this little squealer right here, once the pad wears down below, down to that tooth, it's going to grab it on the rotor. So I'm just going to take this little piece and push it on the pad. So when the pad thickness gets down below that, this thing's going to grab on the rotor before it ever hits the backing plate. So this is your pad material, and then this is the backing plate, and then this is an anti-squeal pad. You can see just a little gap. didn't do much. Once it clips on, it's on. Next thing we got to do is go ahead and get our grooves greased up so that we can slide our pads in. Just a light coating of grease is all you need. We're going to take the ears, we're going to lightly dab these. Make sure your hands don't have a bunch of grease when you touch the surface here. So I'm going to take the pad and bring it in just like this. Bring it about halfway and rotate it. The other side, just take the pad and slide it in. And you want to move the pads kind of towards the outside portion to where they don't fall out, but where they're just resting in there. And that one's ready to go on the car. That one's ready as well. Gonna kind of come in between, wipe any excess. Ooh. Grease in between the grooves out. Okay, both of those are ready to go on the car. Let's get the rotors on. Before we put this rotor on, I wanted to show you this is the little thing you need to move in order to, what that does is it opens these shoes, and that is what you're going to be aiming for, getting your screwdriver on that if you need to adjust the emergency brake through the little hole in the rotors. So this little cog right here. Before I put the rotor on, I want to clean the back side of it. So all these rotors get coated in a light coating of oil so they don't rust while they're sitting in the package. All I really need to clean is the flat surface that the pad rides on. I don't need to clean down inside these grooves or anything. Just the surface that the pad will ride on. And really just the back side. I'm not going to be able to access the back side other than from this little hole where the caliper sits once I put this rotor on. So that's why I'm cleaning it now. The next thing I want to clean, just look at, inspect, is this surface here where the rotor is going to mate. If it's really corroded, you want to take a wire brush to it. Mine's not really corroded. I just had it apart a couple years ago and wire brushed it. So I'm just wiping off anything excess. And then I'm just going to take my finger and run it across it and try and feel for any raised surface. I don't feel anything, so I really don't need to wipe it any further. Now I can go ahead and put this rotor on. Just double check that these shims are still here. And I really don't want to touch the rotor surface, so I'm just going to kind of lift it up from the inside like that, and then I'm going to hold it. And I want to pay attention to where my little screw, my set screw hole is, and match that up to the hole on the rotor. my set screw hole is right there. So now we're going to try and shove it on there. So this one actually has 2 set screws. I only have 1, or countersinks for the set screws. Now I can take this, spray this off. Now you can install these little retainer screws, just one of them on this. Now, I would highly recommend, if you want to be able to get it off the next time really easily, that you just put a little dab of copper-based anti-seize on it. I'm actually going to put a little in the countersink. Now I can do the other side off camera. All right, and so I've got both the rotors put on, and I went ahead, when I was on the other side, it reminded me the inner bore of the drum portion. I didn't wipe that off on camera, but you want to wipe that off when you're wiping the backside before you put this on. So I did that, came back and did that off camera on this side, but I've got both of them on. I'm able to turn them and they're not dragging the brake. If they were dragging, I'd have to align this hole and then use my flat blade or even a 90-degree hook to pull that little thing back that we were looking at earlier, that little cog. And what that does is it either takes the shoes, and that's what they use inside of drums, is shoes, not pads, and it either brings them this way or it brings them out that way so they contact that inner bore. So right now they're not contacting it. All right, on the emergency brake, obviously it's right here on the floor on this one, so I'm going to push it down until it hits the first detent. All right, it's on the first detent. Now I'm going to check the driver's side. Even on the first detent, it's not moving at all. It's grabbing. So let's check the passenger side. The passenger side, it's not, for the most part, it's stopped as well. It's kind of moving a little bit, but that would be reverse direction, not forward. So we'll go ahead and try and set this one, I guess, to match the other side. And I'm just going to take this and line it up, and I can see the little cog going through that I saw earlier. Now that's going to be kind of tough to get on camera. All right, for clarity's sake, I've gone ahead and removed the rotor, because what I was doing is I was pushing through that hole and pushing it like that. But what I need to do is I need to turn it back. Now I could have gone through with this little hook and reached around it and brought the cam back. All right, so as you're turning this, see the threads right there? It's spreading this part out. So this is a shoe over here, and this is a shoe, and it's spreading those two out. All right, and if you go too far with it, what's going to happen is you're not going to be able to get the rotor on, because I actually open this up, and it's exactly the same span from here to here, from here to here. All right, let's hit that e-brake. All right, I feel a lot better about that. I said I wasn't going to adjust it, but both sides are grabbing pretty hard. Now I've gone ahead and released the brake, and since I've reset it, both sides are grabbing just a little bit. So what I'm gonna do is adjust both sides, push in on that little cog until it's no longer dragging with the emergency brake set. Because I don't want it dragging, it's gonna end up wearing that pad out, and it's going to cause a lot of friction, heating the brakes up. It's getting closer. I'm going to go to the other side and get it a little closer, because that cable can kind of dial in and kind of rock back and forth, and you don't want to be chasing your tail. All right, I'm very close. This is all precision adjustments. You could just let the pad wear in if you want, or the shoe. Let's go to the other side again. All right, I got them to where they are both spinning and not dragging. They don't really grab too much on the first detent, a little bit now. All right, so you're gonna grab your 17mm wrench and have that handy. And grab your bolts for your caliper bracket. We're gonna take the caliper bracket. I'm gonna slide it on. Line up this bolt. Now you can put anti-seize on these bolts. I have in the past. Didn't today. This vehicle's garaged a lot, so. Okay. We're going to take this, and I'm sure there is a torque for this, but I'm going to get it nice and snug. Okay. All right, now I need to compress this piston. I'm actually going to take one of these pads off because I don't want to put my clamp down inside of that piston. It could blow it out. I should have done this with the old pads before I sent them back. So I'm just going to take a pad off. I need to run this in a little bit. Okay, so now I've got it kind of loaded up like that. I'm just going to take it and compress the piston. It doesn't have to go very far until it stops. Pull this pad out so I don't drop it. So you want the flats, these flats sit against these edges right here. So there's a hard edge right here, and the flat of this caliper pin sits against it. And it keeps it from rotating. Then we're going to take our 12mm bolts, these here, and screw these back in. Go until it bottoms out, and then give it a little more. That's tight, that's tight. The two caliper brackets are tight. You'll notice right now there's no brake pressure. We need to go step on the brake and kind of relieve that, but we're gonna have to get the other side on before we do that, or you'll send that piston on the other side flying out. Okay, so that's kind of how much pad material had worn down. Not a lot, but that's essentially what your when you step on the brake, this piston goes out and it's pulling these two together and pinching your pads. I'm going to do the other side and then we'll continue. Okay, I went ahead and pushed down on the foot pedal brake and there's no slop in there now. It's going to grab a little and that's fine. Okay, it is time to go ahead and put the wheel back on. Both of them. Alright, I don't really need to torque the lugs necessarily quite yet because I do have to come back and put that little plug back on. But I am going to go for a drive, so just as precaution, I am going to torque them to 80 foot-pounds. What I ended up doing too was going up to the front and setting the e-brake as hard as I could. That way I can see if, it'll kind of give me a good indication whether or not, if this spins at 80 foot-pounds, I've at least got about that of grip. Now, if the brakes weren't grabbing, I'd know it's definitely not going to stop the car. But if it stops 80 pounds of torque wrench, it's probably going to stop the car. Go to the other side. Right, we're going to go under, kind of show you where I jack it. There's a jacking point right there. If you look in the owner's manual, it does say that that is the jacking point as well, by the way. Before I bring it all the way down, I'm going to end up backing the car up to the same spot. I've got a block of wood that I set on these pieces of tape so I know exactly where to back the vehicle up to. Because it's kind of a tight squeeze in this garage. Alright, on our test drive, what we're going to do is we're going to bed the rotors. I've changed the fronts just a few weeks ago to kind of show you what that looks like. You can see there is a coating. It's kind of a discolored layer. It kind of polishes them up, but it also embeds some of the pad material into the rotor. So if you want to learn how to do that, watch my video for the front. I'll put a link in the description below, and I'll put a link at the very top corner right now in the video that you can click on. All right, and what we're gonna do is go ahead, get it up to maybe 10 miles an hour here. Go ahead and hit the emergency brake, and the emergency brake is not bringing it to a stop. So we're gonna have to adjust that a little bit more to give it a little more drag. That's okay. All right, so I've gone ahead and printed the whole procedure for the rear brakes. It's got torque specs in there, so I'll put that up on the screen. Then I also went ahead and printed the procedure for the parking brake adjustment and inspection, as well as the parking brake shoe lining break-in. So similar to doing the whole break-in method, or what's also known as bedding the brakes for the normal outside of the calipers, bedding in the emergency brake or the parking brake. This is the procedure for the parking brake shoe lining break-in. It starts on the next page. Here you'll notice that the major adjustment is to be done when you replace the brake shoes and after the lining surface break-in. So I went ahead and did the lining surface break-in while I was out for my initial test drive. So on the parking brake inspection and adjustment, there's two different methods. You've got the minor adjustment here, and then the major adjustment on the other screen. We kind of did a major adjustment because we replaced the drum / rotor. So the first step on the major adjustment is to raise the vehicle, release the parking brake pedal, and then loosen the adjusting nut, which is inside the vehicle under the pedal. So that's what we're going to go do now. Parking brake and inspection adjustment begins on this page. This uses a force gauge, which is more of a service inspection criteria. It continues on to the next page, and this note here says after installing the parking brake shoes, the new parking brake shoes, make sure you drive the break-in period. So we're going to go ahead and continue with the major adjustment. We'll refer back to this page since it includes the minor adjustment that has to be done after the major adjustment. This page has the major adjustment. We've already done steps 1 and 2. Now in the cabin we're going to do step 3, which is loosen that adjusting nut that the arrow just pointed at. Alright, and of course this is your parking brake, emergency brake pedal. The nut you're going to adjust is this one right here on the very side of the pedal. And you're just going to put a ratchet on it and loosen that puppy up. And I'm not going to go crazy far. I'm just going to take a little bit off of it. So we've gone ahead and gone in there. The next step on here says to remove the rear wheels, remove the access plug, which we've already done, and then to go ahead and tighten this cog or whatever you want to call it. You're going to tighten that until it grabs. Right now I've got these pads kind of grabbing a little bit, but the parking brake isn't grabbing right now. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust this until it's grabbing, and then it says to back it off 15 clicks. So push that little thing in 15 times. And then it says to go ahead and reinstall the access plug, and the rest of the adjustments will be up in the front. So by doing what we did a few minutes ago, we took the emergency brake cable completely out of the equation. So by loosening that front nut, now it's only this emergency brake back here. So you can take your flat blade and go this way with it angled up, and that is going to loosen up the emergency brake or the parking brake. If you angle your screwdriver like downward and roll the adjuster, let's see, it's going to be counterclockwise or clockwise, whichever way you're looking at it. But if I'm turning it this way, that is going to be adjusting it to tighten it. If I turn it this way, it's going to adjust it to loosen it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it to adjust it. So I've got quite a ways to go. Starting to grab a little bit. All right, it's grabbing now. I'm not able to turn it. So I'm going to go 15 clicks back. All right, now it's loosened back up. I'm gonna go to the other side and do the same on there. All right, and it's just barely grabbing. It sounds more like it's grabbing up here than it does inside. But both of them are set 15 clicks back from grabbing and stopping it. So now it's to go up in the front and adjust that. So next step, it says to clean the mating surfaces between the brake drum and the discs. So you're going to take that off, clean everything. Then your next step is to go in and do what they call the minor adjustment procedure. All right, and so the minor adjustment procedure will be raise and support the vehicle. I'll put this up on the screen too. Raise and support the vehicle, release the parking brake pedal fully, press the parking brake pedal one click, and then tighten and adjust the nut A, which is up in the cabin that we adjusted earlier, until the parking brakes drag slightly when the rear wheels are turned. Release the parking brake fully and check that the parking brakes do not drag when the rear wheels are turned. Readjust if necessary. Make sure the parking brake pedal is within specified number of clicks, 8 to 10 clicks. So we're going to go ahead and do that. All right, so I'm going to push the pedal in till it hits the first click. And then I'm going to put my ratchet up here again. And then I'm going to turn it in a little bit. I've already turned it in and done this, but I'm going to turn it in, and then I'm going to go back out to the rear wheel, and I'm going to check with both hands, I'm holding the camera right now, that I can't move the wheel. And we'll check this side as well. We can go ahead and put these plugs back in because we're not going to need them anymore. All right, so I take it, kind of put it down at an angle like that, and then I'm going to take my flat blade and just kind of slowly work it into it. And you don't want to push this thing all the way through, or you're going to have to take it all back apart. Now we'll go ahead and put the wheel back on. All right, so now that the rear wheels are back on, the next step it said to do was release the parking brake entirely, and then go ahead and make sure the wheels don't drag, which they don't. You're hearing it drag on this caliper here. I think I'm going to go ahead in the next few weeks, at least when I get a chance hopefully, is remove those rear calipers and go ahead and rebuild the pistons, put new pistons in there and new seals, just as a precaution, because they were starting to corrode up really bad. If you don't know how to do that, I'm going to go ahead and do a video on that as well, but if you don't know how to do that, you're not comfortable doing that, once you watch that video, I'll put a link to it at the top corner once I get the video done for you to click on so you can go check it out. But if it's something that's over your head or you're afraid of doing because it's a brake system, you can go and buy a new caliper or a rebuilt caliper at an auto parts store as well. But it's super easy, and you'll see that when I do a video on it. So the next thing we need to do is go ahead and make sure the parking brake pedal is within the specified number of clicks. So 8 to 10 clicks, and then that the wheel shouldn't move in that. So then we're going to go ahead and do a test drive. All right, what they mean by 8 to 10 clicks is making sure that you can get 8 to 10 clicks out of the parking brake pedal. So we're going to go down here and push it. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I get 10 clicks out of it. Let's see how many I can get. I can get more than 10. There's 10 though. And let's go make sure the wheels don't rotate, which I highly doubt they will. All right, and the wheels don't rotate. We're gonna go ahead and release the parking brake and set it back down on the ground and take it for a test drive. See how it worked out. And we'll torque the lugs to 80 foot-pounds. And I don't have to go very far. I just tested it and it did do it. We're gonna do it here again once I'm clear, and you'll hear it. I can actually get it to drag the rear wheel as well. So that is completely set, and they release, so we're good to go. All right, just wanted to show you. So I warrantied out, looks like those might have been the pads, the 2 rotors that I warrantied out that gave me my money back essentially, and then I bought new rotors, the Import Direct brand from the Brake Best brand, and that only ran me 38 bucks, as opposed to buying new pads and new rotors. I mean, these rotors were what, $102 a piece? So definitely hang on to your receipts. All right, we've got both the fronts and the rear's done. All right, so we've got the Odyssey now to where I have 3-year brakes, brake pads and rotors. Every 3 years I can swap them out completely free of charge. Like I said, I don't know why more and more people don't take advantage of this. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we will see you in the garage the next time.